Hi, eighth graders. So today we are going to continue Amal Unbound, and we are going to read 4 chapters. Chapter 38. Wait. 3 chapters, 38, 39, and 40. So that's going to take us from 79 to 85. It's a little bit more than I usually read. But the reason is that I gave a little bit less reading subnote today. So for today. So I'm going to read a little bit more. And I hope you're okay with that because I don't know, I feel like we're getting to the good stuff. So chapter 38. Okay. I have a surprise for you, I told Fatima the next evening. I had left Nazreen Baji watching television in the living room and slipped into the kitchen where Fatima was putting the leftovers from the evening meal in the fridge. Surprise! Fatima squinted at me. I pulled out the book from behind my back. A book? Her eyes widened. Could I read it? Well, maybe some of the words, I said. Want to read it together? We can see which ones you can try to sound out. Fatima hurried over to me as I turned to the first page. I read her the story of a lion and a mouse. Have you ever heard that story before, The Lion and the Mouse? The lion saved the mouse, and as the story continued, the mouse saved the lion in return. I watched her mouth form some of the words in disbelief. Sure, the words were simple, but it was happening. Fatima was learning to read. Fatima, you're doing it. See how many words you knew? Fatima beamed. The doorbell chimed. I shut the book and glanced at the clock. It was just after dinner. People never came at this hour. Fatima and I stepped out of the kitchen and walked down the hallway to the foyer. We saw Bilal hurrying to the front door. He looked out the window. His hand tightened on the doorknob before opening it. I knew before he opened it, it was the police again. Nazreen Baji strode toward the door as the 2 officers stepped into the foyer. They were different from the ones who came last time. I apologize for disrupting you at this late hour, the bearded officer said. We need to speak to Jawad Sahib. It's an urgent matter, and we are unable to reach him by phone. He's not home, Nazreen Baji replied. Where might he be? I'm not sure. His own mother doesn't know where he is, the other officer muttered. Excuse me? She raised her voice. Do you think we enjoy these regular intrusions? Khan Sahib will not be amused when he finds out how late at night you came to harass his wife. I apologize for Usman, the bearded officer interjected. He handed her a card. It's just that it's important we speak to him. I will relay the message. Her face remained stony until they walked out of the foyer. They've never done that before, she exclaimed once they were gone. They would never dare. She looked at the card. What on earth is going on? She picked up her phone. I need to make some calls, she said to me. Go look and see if anything needs to be done in the kitchen. She headed up the stairs to her bedroom. Can you read the book to me again? Fatima tugged at my knees. Tomorrow. One last time, please. We slipped back into the kitchen. She listened, not moving a muscle as I read to her again. When I finished, Fatima leaned up and kissed my cheek. Thank you, she said. I knew learning to read wouldn't change the fact that Fatima was trapped here like I was, cleaning floors, dusting baseboards, and peeling potatoes. But at least by teaching her to read, I gave her a window to see worlds beyond ours and a chance to imagine leaving the walls of this estate and to feel free, even if it was for only a little while. Chapter 39. Asif was already sitting at the desk at the Literary Center, typing at his laptop when I walked into his classroom. His eyebrows were knit in concentration. He nodded when he saw me. I sat down across from him and pushed the book I'd borrowed across the table to him. Thank you for lending me the book, I told him. How did she like it? He asked. She loved it. She made me read it so many times this morning, I think she's memorized the story. That's great, he smiled. I have some easier ones you can take for her today. She might even be able to read those all the way through on her own, based on the letters and sounds she knows. And good news, I found some great software that teaches math and reading. I've ordered it for the center, and it should be here in time for our next session. Really? Thank you so much. While we wait for it to come in, I thought you could practice how to take a multiple choice online test. I found a few basic reading passages. They're a little silly, but they'll do the job while we wait for the software. He pushed the laptop toward me and pulled his chair next to me. A giggle escaped when I saw the screen. An elephant, a dog, a cat, and a mouse grinned at me on screen. I warned you, Asif laughed. I clicked on the green arrow. It opened a new page with the story. The elephant chases the dog. The dog chases the cat. The cat chases the mouse. The mouse chases the ant. The ant chases the elephant, and around they go. Okay, now that that's done, he rolled his eyes. Let's go to the multiple choice part. Click the prompt below. It will open a smaller screen on the questions. I stared at the screen. Amal, something wrong? It's cruel. What do you mean? This poem. It's trying to say that there is always someone to go after someone and keep the balance of power equal. But it's not true. The elephant is in control. The mouse, the cat, the ant, they can do what they like, but sooner or later, they will all be gone except the elephant. Pretending otherwise is foolish. There is a saying, elephants fear no other animal but ants. Who is to say if it's true or not? But it's not true. The biggest are not afraid of the smallest. In the end, the biggest wins. The story is trying to teach young children about justice and fairness. But life isn't fair. I will be a servant for the rest of my life because I spoke back to the wrong person. I will be indebted to him my entire life. I was going to be a teacher. I was going to go to college. All my dreams are gone because one person has the power to crush them. And guess what happened to the last group of people who tried to stop him? He burned their village to the ground. I saw the deserted village with my own eyes. They lost everything. And Jawad Sahib, he gained more. The bigger always have all the power. They aren't scared of the little people. It just doesn't work like that. My hands shook. I placed them on the desk to steady myself. Why did a silly poem affect me so much? I moved to apologize, but he spoke first. Amal, I'm sorry. I had no idea of your circumstances, but even in difficult situations, especially in difficult situations, you can't lose hope. Things change. They might even change for you one day. He said it with such conviction, he could have fooled me if I didn't know any better. My great-grandfather was a judge, he continued. My grandfather was a lawyer. My father is a lawyer. He's argued cases in front of the highest courts. When I told him I wanted to be a teacher, he laughed at me. Then he threatened to defund my education. But I held strong. I found a way. I'm the first one to be a teacher in my family. No one supported me, but I did it because this is what I always wanted to do. If I thought nothing would change, nothing ever would. I know the situation is different, but things can change, even when you don't think that they will. You're from a big city, I said. It's different here. That's not true. Things are changing in villages all over the country, even here. He hesitated before adding, especially here. He minimized the poem on the screen and clicked a new website. He typed for a moment, and then a news story flashed across the screen. Salim Mustag still missing as local landlord is investigated. There's the headline. A photo of Jawad Sahib stared back at me. So Jawad Sahib is really getting investigated. Like they are going to catch him. The son of a diplomat disappeared not far from here, Asif explained. Apparently, he's one of quite a few few to go missing around here. But considering who he is and the election season is approaching, the police are forced to take it seriously. They're looking into Jawad Sahib's possible involvement. I stared at the eyes gleaming back at me from the screen. No one would have bothered to investigate a family like the Khans even a few years ago, Asif said. But people all around the country are fighting this status quo. Things are changing. I hoped what Asif was saying was true, but I found it hard to believe. Asif couldn't understand how things worked here and the absolute power a family like the Khans held in a place like ours. In chapter 40. Nabila Bilal and I lingered by the door to the main veranda watching Nazreen. She sat on a wicker chair, the tea in her hands long cold, a folded newspaper resting on her lap. What's going on? Nabila asked. I've never seen her like this. Jawad's been gone for days and hasn't returned a single call, Bilal replied. I heard her this morning, I admitted. She also left a message for her husband. She was so upset, I thought she might cry. Jawad Sahib is in some sort of trouble, Bilal said. I think that's why he doesn't take me along with him on his trips anymore. He thinks if he doesn't take me, I won't find out what's going on. I read a news article about it, I whispered. They are investigating if he had something to do with a missing person. Who was it? Nabila asked me. It had to be someone important to have the police poking their noses around here so much. Enough! Mumtaz appeared and frowned at us. I hope you are not gossiping about the hands that feed us, she said. It's not our concern what they might be up to. Nabila glanced at me and rolled her eyes, but before she could say anything else, the front door thudded. Nazreen Baji's eyes widened when Jawad Sahib stepped onto the veranda. He was accompanied by a man with a shock of white hair and a thick mustache, wearing a white shalwar kameez. Nazreen Baji jumped up and rushed toward them. You're home, she exclaimed. Never thought I'd see the day. Needed to sort out this police business once and for all, the man replied. I'll be paying them a personal visit today. Mumtaz, go and air out Khan Sahib's wardrobe, Nazreen Bashi said. No need. I have to leave this evening. What? Her expression drooped. After all this time away, you can't stay the night? You don't know the pressure I'm under. The federal police are on my back. They're not as simple to shake off as the ones here, although they've gotten worse here too. He glared at Jawad Sahib. I keep you here to handle things, and I expect them to be handled. Never thought you'd make more problems for me. Is this about that missing boy? She held up the newspaper. Why did I have to read about it in the papers like a common villager? I told you already, Jawad Sahib said. I don't want you to concern yourself with this. Well, it's hard not to concern myself when ill-mannered police officers charge into our house. I've never been so disrespected. They dared to be rude to you? Khan Sahib's face reddened. Yes, why do you think I've been trying to call you both so many times? Nazreen turned to her son. You could have at least sent me a message to let me know you were all right, Jawad. The way they barged in, can you imagine what went through my mind? I'm sorry, Jawad Sahib said. I will take care of it, Khan Sahib told her. They won't bother you again. The things that they're saying in the papers, Nazreen Baji shook her head. Her eyes watered. Jawad says none of it's true, Khan Sahib said. That boy comes by to see Jawad, gets drunk, and then decides to play cards with the locals. Loses, refuses to pay. Now he's missing. With the way that boy was used to mouthing off to people, sooner or later something was going to happen to him. But it'll blow over soon enough. Nothing to do with us. Jawad Sahib's phone rang. He glanced at the screen before shoving it in his phone. Blah, Jawad Sahib said. Send my meal to my room. Yes, Sahib, he rushed off. I watched Khan Sahib talk to Nazreen Baji. Then there he was, the man I'd heard stories about all my life, the man whose photos lined the hallways I walked through each day. He was the boogeyman our mothers invoked to urge us to finish our dinner. When I was Safa's age, I imagined him to be 10 feet tall with beady eyes and pointy teeth. Hafsa was convinced he breathed fire. But now he stood a few steps away from me, and he didn't breathe fire, and he wasn't 10 feet tall. He and Jawad Sahib were powerful and mean-spirited men. But maybe, just maybe, even they weren't invincible.